Welcome to another deep dive. Today, we're plunging into a classic that has, well, really shaped our understanding of power for centuries.
Hmm.
A text so impactful its author's name literally became an adjective.
That's right.
We're talking about Nicolo Machiavelli's The Prince, and also his fascinating companion piece, The Life of Castruccio Castracani of Lucca.
It's a truly rich set of sources, yeah.
Yeah.
And our mission today really is to pull out the most potent insights from Machiavelli's, let's say, often controversial advice.
Right. On acquiring and maintaining political power.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then we'll look at how the life of Castruccio Castracani, a figure Machiavelli really admired, kind of put these principles into action, off quite dramatically. We'll try to uncover those surprising facts, those aha moments that hopefully will leave you well-informed and maybe a little provoked.
So let's unpack this. Who was this man, Machiavelli? The name itself conjures up so much, doesn't it? Cunning, ruthless pragmatism.
Yeah, it really does.
We're going to look into his life, his diplomatic work, and the very specific things happening around him that led him to write these enduring, and let's face it, often quite chilling works.
Definitely. So Niccolò Machiavelli, born in Florence, 1469. He was part of the old Florentine nobility.
And his life really unfolded across, well, three pretty distinct eras, didn't it? Each one mirroring the intense political ups and downs of Florence itself.
Absolutely. What's really formative, I think, is how his youth under Lorenzo de' Medici, Il Magnifico, the magnificent.
Right, the splendor of that era.
Exactly, how that shaped his views on what effective leadership looked like. And then came his active career after the Medici fell.
Mm-hmm.
He rose to become a pretty significant public servant, chancellor and secretary to the Ten of Liberty and Peace for nearly 2 decades.
Wow, yeah.
Undertaking diplomatic missions all over Europe. So he was literally there at the negotiating table, seeing firsthand how power actually worked, or didn't work.
But then things changed again. The political wheel turned, as it does.
It did. The Medici returned in 1512, and boom, Machiavelli's world just got turned upside down.
He lost his job.
Lost his office, yeah. Was imprisoned, even tortured.
Yeah.
They suspected him of conspiracy.
I mean, that's not just a footnote, is it? That experience, that had to be the crucible where the prince was forged.
Absolutely. You have to think that shaped him profoundly. So, after all that, why write this book? And who exactly was he writing it for?
Good question.
That's the crucial point, isn't it? He dedicates The Prince to Lorenzo de' Medici's grandson, which, looks a lot like a job application.
Or at least a plea to get back in favor.
Right, a plea for reintegration. But it feels like more than just that. He explicitly states his intention is to offer the knowledge of the actions of great men.
Acquired by long experience in contemporary affairs and a continual study of antiquity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He wanted it to be useful to him who apprehends it, like a practical manual, not just some abstract theory.
And it's fascinating how he viewed his own position, his unique perspective. He famously said something like,
To understand the nature of the people, it needs to be a prince. And to understand that if prince is, it needs to be of the people.
Yes, that's it. And that's not just a clever line, is it? It suggests this rare viewpoint he had, someone who'd been in the halls of power, and then suddenly found himself in exile, humbled. He apparently wrote The Prince, wearing peasant clothes during the day.
Yeah, that's a story.
And then at night, put on his noble court dress to kind of commune with the great men of old in his study. His personal journey seems so baked into the work itself.
It really does. It's inseparable.
Okay, so let's dig into The Prince itself. It mostly talks about principalities, right? States run by one leader. He deals with republics elsewhere.
Correct. And he immediately sets up this kind of hierarchy of difficulty. Hereditary states, easiest to hold on to.
Just don't mess with tradition too much.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Respect ancestral customs, keep things stable, but new principalities. That's where the real challenge lies.
And that's where his most radical advice comes in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because when states are newly acquired, especially if the people aren't used to the prince's rule, the problems just multiply like crazy.
He observes that people willingly change rulers, hoping things will get better.
Yeah. Hoping to better themselves.
But often find, they have gone from bad to worse.
Right. And this creates this immediate need for the new prince to, impose burdens, soldiers, hardships, which naturally just breeds resentment.
So what's a new prince supposed to do in that situation? Machiavelli offers 3 core bits of advice for holding on to new territory. First, reside there in person.
Be on the ground.
Yeah, like the Ottoman Turk did in Greece, he says. Being there lets you fix problems quickly, and people are happier, or at least less unhappy, seeing the ruler present.
Makes sense. Second piece of advice, send colonies.
Colonies.
Yeah. Settlements of your own people. They're cheap, they're usually faithful, and crucially, they only really anger a small minority, the people whose land you take.
Okay. And this leads to one of his most chilling lines, doesn't it?
It does. This is where he says, men ought either to be well treated or crushed.
Because they can avenge themselves of later injuries, of more serious ones they cannot. Wow.
Yeah. The brutal logic is, don't leave an enemy wounded, but still capable of revenge. Half measures in cruelty are dangerous. Either be benevolent or be absolute.
Chilling is the right word. Okay, and the third piece of advice.
Third, become the leader and defender of your less powerful neighbors while actively weakening the more powerful ones.
Yeah, the regional power game.
Exactly. Keep the smaller states loyal to you and prevent any strong neighbors or strong foreign powers from getting a dangerous foothold in the area.
He uses the Romans as the prime example here, right? Saying they dealt with problems at once.
They knew, he says, that war is not to be avoided, but is only to be put off to the advantage of others. Don't procrastinate dealing with threats.
And conversely, he often points to King Louis XII of France and Italy as someone who did everything wrong.
Yeah, well, Louis is his poster child for princely failure in Italy. Machiavelli lists, 5 capital errors?
Something like that. Destroying the minor powers.
Increasing the strength of powerful ones like the church.
Bringing in a foreign power, Spain.
Not actually moving there himself.
And not sending colonies.
Right. And then he apparently made a 6th mistake by ruining the Venetians too. Just blunder after blunder, according to Machiavelli.
And the big lesson from Louis XII.
The big takeaway for Machiavelli is a general rule that never or rarely fails. That he who is the cause of another becoming powerful is ruined.
Don't build up your potential rivals. Stark.
Absolutely stark. And speaking of foundations, Machiavelli is crystal clear on what underpins a stable state.
Let me guess. Good laws and good arms.
You got it. And when it comes to those arms, he is absolutely insistent. A prince must have his own forces, his own army.
No mercenaries?
No mercenaries, no auxiliaries, troops borrowed from another ruler. He calls them useless and dangerous.
Why so down on them?
He says they're disunited, ambitious, and without discipline, unfaithful. Basically, they fight for pay, not for the pins of the state.
Valiant before friends, cowardly before enemies.
Exactly. His core belief here is self-reliance. Only your own citizens fighting for their own interests will be truly reliable. He blames Italy's weakness, its ruin even, on relying on mercenaries for years.
He even brings up that Pope Alexander VI quote about Charles VIII of France.
Yeah, that Charles seized Italy with chalk in hand. Meaning, he didn't really have to fight, he just had his men mark the houses where they'd be quartered. It showed how weak Italy's defenses were.
So relying on others' arms is a path to ruin. But how does one even get power in the first place? He talks about 2 main ways, doesn't he?
He does. You can rise either by your own arms and your own virtue, or by the arm of others and good fortuna.
Okay, pause there. Those terms, virtue and fortuna, are absolutely central to Machiavelli, right? And maybe not quite what they sound like in English.
Crucial distinction, yes. Virtue for Machiavelli isn't moral virtue. It's more like skill, ability, prowess, determination, foresight. The capacity to act decisively and effectively to shape events.
Manly competence, almost.
You can put it that way, yeah. Political ability, maybe. And fortuna. That's fortune, luck, fate, the unpredictable stuff, the circumstances you can't control.
Like a storm or...
Exactly. And Machiavelli argues that the rulers who rely least on fortuna, on just getting lucky, are the ones who build the strongest states. Because they make their own destiny through their virtuna.
He uses examples like Moses, Cyrus, Romulus.
Theseus, too. Figures who, yes, found opportunities presented by fortuna, but they seized them and succeeded because of their own high virtue.
And this leads to another famous or infamous line. All armed prophets have conquered, and the unarmed ones have been destroyed.
He uses Fra Girolamo Savonarola as the prime example of the unarmed failure.
The fiery preacher in Florence.
Right. Savonarola briefly held sway, but when the people's belief in him faltered, he had no arms, no force to back up his rule, and he fell. Power needs enforcement.
And this is where Machiavelli really goes off the conventional path, because he doesn't just look at good ways to get power. He tackles what most would call, well, wickedness.
He absolutely does. He discusses figures like Agathocles the Sicilian, Oliverato da Fermo men who gain power through brutal treachery and outright cruelty.
But he draws a line, doesn't he? He says these methods might get you empire, like control.
Yes, they can gain you control, territory, power, but not glory. There's a difference for him. True glory requires something more than just successful evil.
So is cruelty ever okay in his book?
It's complicated. He argues that certain severities, his word for cruelties, can be properly used.
Properly used, how?
If they are, and this is key, applied at one blow and are necessary to one's security, and that are not persisted in afterwards unless they can be turned to the advantage of the subjects.
Okay, break that down.
Basically, if you must be cruel, do it quickly, decisively, get it all over with at once, don't drag it out, then immediately start reassuring people, offering benefits.
So one big shock, then calm.
Exactly. Because badly used cruelties, the ones that multiply over time, just breed ongoing fear and hatred. Whereas, he says, benefits ought to be given little by little, so that the flavor of them may last longer.
Wow. It's such a calculated, almost cynical view of managing public feeling.
Deeply calculated. That's Machiavelli.
Okay, so you've seized power, maybe used some properly applied severity. Now, how do you keep it? What qualities should a prince nurture?
Well, everyone praises qualities like mercy, right?
Being merciful sounds good.
But Machiavelli warns against misusing it. He brings up Cesare Borgia again.
The ruthless duke.
Infamously ruthless, yes. But Machiavelli points out that Borgia's cruelty, while harsh, actually brought peace and order to the Romagna region, unified it.
So,
in a way, Machiavelli argues, Borgia ended up being much more merciful than the Florentine people, because Florence, trying to avoid a reputation for cruelty, let the city of Pistoia tear itself apart through infighting rather than intervening decisively.
That inaction led to more suffering, effectively.
That's his point. Sometimes perceived mercy can be cruelty in disguise if it leads to chaos.
Which leads us right into that classic Machiavellian dilemma. Is it better to be loved or feared?
The age-old question. And his answer is famously blunt.
If you can't be both.
If you can't be both, it's better to be feared.
Why?
His reasoning is pure pragmatism. Love, he says, is broken at every opportunity for their advantage. People are fickle. But fear preserves you by a dread of punishment which never fails. Fear is a more reliable motivator, in his view.
But there's a crucial line you shouldn't cross, right? Fear is one thing.
Hatred is another. Absolutely critical distinction for him. You must avoid being hated.
And what breeds hatred, according to Machiavelli?
Primarily being rapacious and to be a violator of the property and women of his subjects. Don't take their stuff, don't mess with their families.
And that leads to another incredibly famous and kind of shocking quote.
The one about patrimony.
Yeah, men more quickly forget the death of their father than the loss of their patrimony.
It's brutal, isn't it? But his point is about what truly motivates people and what generates lasting resentment. Economic security, property, seems paramount.
Okay, so be feared but not hated. What about keeping your word, honesty, integrity?
Keeping faith. This is where his advice gets really, really interesting. He starts by saying, yes, of course, it's praiseworthy for a prince to be honest and keep his promises. Everyone agrees on that.
Well, there's always a but with Machiavelli.
There usually is. But, he observes, looking at history, the princes who achieved great things often held good faith of little account. They knew when to break their word.
So what should a prince do?
He advises a prince needs to embody two natures, the fox and the lion.
Fox and lion.
Yeah. Be clever like a fox to recognize traps and deception, and be strong like a lion to frighten off the wolves, the aggressors. You need both cunning and strength.
And do you actually need to be good, merciful, faithful, etc.?
Not necessarily be them, but you absolutely must appear to have them.
It's about the image, the perception.
Completely. He says people judge generally more by the eye than by the hand. What they see is more important than the reality, for political purposes.
So project an image of being merciful, faithful, humane, upright, and religious.
But, and this is the crucial part, with a mind so framed that should you require not to be so, you may be able to know how to change to the opposite.
Be ready to drop the virtuous act if the state requires it.
Precisely. Your primary duty is the preservation of the state, not adherence to conventional morality if it jeopardizes that state.
Wow, okay. And tying back to reputation, avoid being hated, but also avoid being
despised. Contempt is also dangerous.
What makes a ruler despised?
Being seen as fickle, frivolous, effeminate, mean-spirited, irresolute. Weakness, basically. Indecisiveness.
So instead, project.
Greatness, courage, gravity, and fortitude. Strength, seriousness, resolve. He argues that the best fortress a prince can have isn't stone walls, it's not to be hated by the people.
He gives that example of the Bentivogli family in Bologna.
Yeah, fantastic example. Their popular support was so strong that even after their prince was murdered, the people of Bologna went and found some obscure relative, someone barely connected to the family, just to have a Bentivogli rule them again. That's the power of popular goodwill.
Now, one piece of advice seems a bit counterintuitive. He argues for being mean rather than liberal, generous.
Right, it seems odd at first, but his logic is this. Being overly generous or liberal requires huge expenditure. Eventually, the prince runs out of money.
And then?
Then he has to tax his people heavily or become rapacious, taking their property just to keep up the generosity, which leads to hatred.
Ah, so the initial generosity backfires.
Exactly. Whereas a prince known for being mean or perhaps frugal might not be loved for his handouts, but he can fund the state's defense, undertake projects without burdening the people excessively. In the long run, that stability might earn more loyalty.
Okay, last bit on the prince's character. Surrounding himself with good people, how does he avoid sycophants and bad advice?
Big challenge for any leader. Machiavelli says the first opinion which one forms of a prince is by observing the men he has around him. Good people suggest a wise ruler.
And watch out for flatterers.
Definitely. He warns strongly against them. His solution: choose wise advisors and give them the freedom to tell you the truth, but only when you ask them about specific matters.
Not just constant unsolicited opinions.
No. The prince should ask specific questions, listen to the candid answers, then deliberate and form his own conclusions. Don't let advisors dictate policy.
And that leads to another key Machiavellian maxim.
Good counsels, he says, are born of the wisdom of the prince and not the wisdom of the prince from good counsels. The wisdom has to originate with the leader.
The buck stops with the prince.
Ultimately, yes.
Okay, let's shift gears slightly. We mentioned Machiavelli wrote this other piece, The Life of Castruccio Castracani of Lucca. He clearly admired this guy, right?
Immensely. He says he saw in Castruccio such indications of valor and fortune as should make him a great exemplar to men. High praise indeed.
In this biography, it feels like Machiavelli is using Castruccio's life as a kind of case study, doesn't it? A practical demonstration of the principles in The Prince.
That's exactly how it reads. It's like, see, here's a guy who actually did this stuff, and look how successful he was.
So tell us about Castruccio. His story starts almost like a legend.
It really does. Found as an abandoned baby, raised by a priest, but by age 14, he was clearly way more interested in arms than ecclesiastical books.
A natural inclination. Speaks to that virtue idea again.
Precisely. Machiavelli emphasizes this innate ability. He catches the eye of a powerful soldier, Messer Francesco Guinigi, who basically adopts him, noticing his royal authority even when playing with other boys. A natural leader.
And how did he build his power? Was it just natural talent?
Talent, yes, but also shrewd calculation. He showed great prudence and courage in military campaigns early on. But then, when a political rival emerged in Lucca, Giorgio degli Uffizi Castruccio didn't hesitate.
What did he do?
Acted decisively. Allied himself with a powerful outsider, this guy Uguccione della Fagiuola, coordinated a surprise attack, killed Giorgio and his whole family, wiped them out.
Oof. That sounds exactly like the advice from the prince. Eliminate threats completely. Be the fox and the lion.
Textbook Machiavelli, exactly.
Yeah.
Combining cunning alliances with brutal force.
And his military skill was key, too.
Oh, absolutely. Machiavelli spends a lot of time detailing his military genius. Like at the Battle of Montecatini, Castruccio takes over command from Uguccione, who's sick.
Right.
He sees the enemy's overconfident, so he pretends to be fearful, lures them in, but he strategically placed his best troops on the flanks against the enemy's weaker points, completely routs them with minimal losses. Brilliant tactics.
You know how to read the situation and adapt.
Constantly adapting. But then Uguccione gets jealous of Castruccio's success.
That don't make others too powerful rule, biting back.
Exactly. Uguccione imprisons Castruccio. But Castruccio was popular. The people of Lucca rise up, free him, and he quickly turns the tables, kicks Uguccione out, and becomes Lord of Lucca himself.
Wow. Swift reversal. And how did he secure his rule then?
Again, decisively. Machiavelli writes that he wiped out all those who by their ambition might aspire to the principality, not sparing one.
Ruthless consolidation of power.
Stating that he had found by experience that none of them were to be trusted. And just to make the point clear, he built a fortress in Lucca, using the stones from the demolished towers of these rivals.
Symbolic and practical.
Very. He also used cunning, pure, fox-like behavior to take the city of Pistoia, promised aid to both sides fighting there, then marched in with his own troops and eliminated the leaders of both factions.
Devious.
Highly. Later, he gained even more prestige, became a Roman senator by helping the Holy Roman Emperor restore order in Rome, showed his value on a bigger stage. He even had this toga embroidered with slogans like, "I am what God wills."
Talk about projecting power and destiny.
Right. What God desires shall be. This from a man who mastered both force and fraud.
You mentioned another battle, Fucecchio.
Another incredible example. Facing a much larger Florentine army, he didn't engage directly at first. He waited until they were struggling to cross the river Arno.
Attacked them when they were vulnerable.
Exactly. Impeded, disorganized. Then he used a feigned retreat to draw them further into a trap before unleashing his reserves. Devastating victory against the odds. A true master of the art of war, as Machiavelli saw it.
Castruccio sounds like he had a pretty blunt philosophy himself, too.
Oh, absolutely. Very Machiavellian, even in his sayings. He apparently believed it was the victory that brought the glory, not the methods of achieving it. Ends justify the means, basically.
And that line about God-loving strong men.
Yeah, men ought to attempt everything and fear nothing, that God is a lover of strong men, because one always sees that the weak are chastised by the strong. Very stark worldview.
He seemed to have had a sharp wit, too.
Very sharp. Machiavelli includes anecdotes like him spitting on a flatterer and then saying something like, "I didn't know where else to spit to offend you less." Shows that kind of supreme confidence in cutting insight.
But despite all this virtue, all this skill and ruthlessness...
Fortuna had the last laugh.
How so?
He died young, just 44. Caught a chill, apparently, while greeting his troops after that victory at Fucecchio. Just bad luck, really.
And his death ruined everything.
According to Machiavelli, yes. It cut short all his grand ambitions. And ironically, his dying advice to his chosen successor, Pagolo, was basically the opposite of his own life.
What did he say?
Make peace with Florence, govern using the arts of peace. A complete contrast to his own relentless war-making.
Wow, that's a twist. It perfectly illustrates Machiavelli's point about fortune, doesn't it? Even the best laid plans, the greatest virtue, can be undone by sheer chance.
Exactly. A poignant end to the story and a powerful lesson about the limits of human control.
So let's try to pull this all together. Thinking about both the prince and Castruccio, what are the big takeaways? Why did Machiavelli think Italian princes kept losing their states?
He points to some fundamental flaws. First, not having their own armies, relying on mercenaries. We covered that.
Right.
Second, failing to secure the loyalty of either the common people or the nobles. You need support somewhere, preferably from the people, but you can't afford to be hated by everyone.
And third?
Sheer sloth, he calls it. Complacency. Failing to prepare for bad times when things are calm, like not building dams before the flood hits.
You need to anticipate adversity.
Precisely. He argues that while fortuna, fortune, or luck is powerful, maybe controls half our actions, he suggests it can be resisted.
How?
Through virtue, through preparation, decisiveness, adaptability. He uses that famous analogy of fortune being like a ruinous river.
Yes.
It causes devastation where people haven't built barriers and defenses. You can't stop the river entirely, maybe, but you can prepare for it, channel it, mitigate its damage.
And that other famous analogy about fortune being like a woman.
Ah, yes. A very controversial one today, obviously. But his point was that fortune favors the bold, the aggressive. She is bedded by the adventurous rather than by those who go to work more coldly. Boldness can seize opportunity from chance.
So all this was written centuries ago for Italian princes. Why are we still talking about it? Why does it still resonate so much?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? I think it's because it cuts through the niceties and deals with the fundamental, often uncomfortable truths about power.
How power actually works, not how we wish it worked.
Exactly. He deals with the great principles which still guide nations and rulers in their relationship with each other and their neighbors. He famously refused to write about ideal republics or princes that didn't exist. He wrote about people and governments otherwise than as he found them.
The messy reality.
The messy reality. And let's face it, the eternal problems between the ruled and their rulers, they haven't gone away, have they? You see these dynamics play out everywhere.
He ends the prince with that really passionate plea, doesn't he? The exhortation to liberate Italy.
Yeah, it's a sudden shift in tone. Very stirring. He argues the time is perfect, Italy is suffering, fragmented, ready for a new leader, a new prince, to rise up and unite it.
Someone with the necessary virtue.
Someone who will raise their own forces, their own army, and understand that sometimes war is necessary. That war is just, which is necessary, he quotes Livy, and arms are hallowed when there is no other hope but in them.
A call to action.
Definitely. He believes God sets the stage, maybe, but humans have to act. God is not willing to do everything, he says, so humans must do the rest. He saw potential in Italy, great valor in the limbs, but it needed a leader, a head, who understood the realities of power and the new order of arms.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive, it really leaves you thinking, Machiavelli's work is stark, unvarnished, maybe deeply unsettling for some.
It forces you to confront the often brutal mechanics of power.
Whether you agree with his conclusions, find them chilling, or maybe even find some practical wisdom there, his insights into human nature, leadership, control, they're undeniably potent. It makes you wonder, what aspects of his advice do you see playing out today? In politics, obviously, but maybe in business or even in personal dynamics.
And that question of glory versus success, what does it mean to achieve glory if the methods aren't, well, traditionally virtuous? Can you gain empire, but not glory, as he suggested with Agathocles?
Lots to chew on there. That was a truly eye-opening deep dive into Machiavelli, wasn't it? Really getting into his life, his very controversial advice on getting and keeping power, and then seeing it all play out in that dramatic story of Castruccio Castracani.
We've definitely seen how much he stresses having your own forces, that strategic mix of force and cunning the lion and the fox,
Right.
and that critical tightrope walk, being feared, but crucially, not hated.
And also that fascinating idea that sometimes what looks like a vice, like Borgia's cruelty or Prince's meanness, might actually be more valuable for maintaining the state than a conventional virtue.
It challenges a lot of assumptions.
It really does. What stands out most to you from all this? Is it just the brutal honesty about how politics often works? Or maybe those historical examples he uses so effectively?
For me, I think it's the enduring relevance of that core tension he identifies. The idea that leaders then and now often find themselves in situations where they feel forced to act, as he put it, contrary to fidelity, friendship, humanity, and religion, just to keep the state afloat.
That necessity forces difficult, sometimes morally compromising choices.
Exactly. And that raises a really important question for you, the listener, to think about. In our world today, where we talk a lot about transparency, ethical leadership, moral responsibility, where do these ancient, often ruthless maxims from Machiavelli actually fit?
Yeah. What would he make of our current approaches to power, especially in an age so focused on public image and perception, which, ironically, he also talked about a lot?
He certainly did. Food for thought, definitely.
Well, thank you for joining us on this journey into the mind of one of history's most influential and, often misunderstood thinkers.
Hope you feel a bit more informed.
And maybe a lot more curious. We'll see you next time on Deep Dive.